All right, we're going to get started momentarily. If everyone can just get ready. And if you have any cell phones or any electronic devices, please put them on silent.
This way, yeah, this way. People see it. We gotta get them.
Frank, are you good? Everybody ready?
Eddie? Hey, man, Frank, what's up, buddy?
Is anyone else coming? Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out with us today. I'm Lieutenant Dean Polytopoulos. I'm the Public Information Officer of the City of Yonkers. I'm joined by the Honorable Mayor Mike Spano, Police Commissioner Chris Sapienza, and members of the City Council behind me. First Deputy Chief Joseph Monaco from the Investigations Bureau as well. Today we're going to announce a series of arrests that have occurred over the last week. Especially involving an incident that we had on Moore Street. It's a little involved, so I'm going to read some information to you from the news release that's going to be issued after this press conference, and I'll try to walk it through you as best as I can. Then I'm going to step off, and then the Mayor and Commissioner will speak, and they'll take any questions you have. I'm also, when I'm done speaking, I'm going to show you a video behind me too on the monitor. So, as most of you know, on May 31st, we had a homicide here in the city of Yonkers. The victim is 19-year-old Daquan Powell, P-O-W-E-L-L. On Wednesday, May 31st, at about 8:20 p.m., members of the Yonkers Police Department responded to the area of 55 Moore Street on a report of a shooting victim. Upon arrival, officers located an unresponsive male with multiple gunshot wounds to his abdomen down on the street next to a black sedan. First responders rendered CPR. It was one of our police lieutenants who was one of the first on scene. He immediately rendered CPR, and we transported the victim to a local hospital, but unfortunately he was pronounced deceased. A second male victim was also located with a non-life-threatening gunshot wound to his leg. We immediately initiated an investigation. What we found out that day, that Powell was the driver of the vehicle, and an 18-year-old individual was a passenger in the vehicle. They were driving a black sedan. That vehicle was driven eastbound on Moore Street and stopped in front of house number 55. As the front passenger exited the vehicle, an armed assailant ran up to the driver's window and fired 6 gunshots through the window, striking Powell 6 times and the passenger 1 time. The gunman, along with 2 accomplices, then fled the scene. Our detectives determined that the 3 of them, the gunman and his 2 accomplices, were lying in wait in the house's driveway for Powell to arrive, and we believe that this shooting is related to gang violence and that Powell was targeted for assassination. Detectives quickly identified several persons of interest, and over the next several days worked to build a case in support of criminal charges and to make an arrest. Further investigation yielded that the gunman was not local. He was not a Yonkers resident. He lived out of state. His 2 accomplices were also implicated in a shooting incident that occurred on May 13th in the area of 100 Livingston Avenue, where a 42-year-old Brooklyn man was shot in the chest, and he survived, but in critical condition. In that Livingston incident, those 2 accomplices that were on Moore Street were also on Livingston with a third party, and we'll get to that. As the investigation into these incidents continued, Yonkers Police also responded to another shooting incident on Sunday, June the 4th, at about 4:00 p.m. in the area of 77 Riverdale Avenue. A gunman allegedly fired at least 7 shots at 2 individuals riding dirt bikes. The shots missed their targets, but did strike a random vehicle across the street occupied by 2 brothers in their 30s. Those gentlemen, fortunately, were not struck, but the bullets did strike their car. They were actually there because they were, on their Sunday, they were delivering meals to a cancer patient in the building. We determined that that shooting was also related to an ongoing gang issue connected to the other two shootings. We also believe that the weapon used in the Riverdale Avenue shooting was the same weapon that was used to murder Daquan Powell. As detectives continued to collect information and evidence, we identified all the perpetrators in the three incidents, and we developed plans to execute a search warrants and to make arrests. Working with the Westchester County District Attorney's Office, the FBI's Westchester County Safe Streets Task Force, and our law enforcement partners in the city of Danbury, Connecticut, Yonkers police officers and members from these different agencies began effecting arrests on the night of Tuesday, June the 6th, and the morning hours of Wednesday the 7th. Under arrest for the murder of Daquan Powell is Matthew Quinones, Quinones. He's a 20-year-old resident of Danbury, Connecticut. He's been charged with murder in the second degree, which is an A1 violent felony in the New York State penal law. Also under arrest, and we're not going to name them because they're juveniles, are three adolescent offenders. We're going to call them adolescent offenders 1, 2, and 3. All three have been charged with attempted murder, assault in the first degree, criminal possession of a weapon, and conspiracy for the Livingston Avenue shooting incident. Two of those adolescent offenders were also present for the murder of Daquan Powell, and those charges are pending. In addition to those 4 arrests, there's a 5th individual, we'll call him adolescent offender number 4, who is wanted in connection with the shooting on Riverdale Avenue. We know who he is. We're actively looking for him. We anticipate to have him in custody in the near future. Obviously, because he's a juvenile, we're not going to name him here today, but that's another shooting incident that's going to be closed out by our detectives. During the execution of search warrants while making these arrests, Yonkers police recovered 2 semi-automatic 9mm pistols. One was thrown out of a window in the buildings down on Riverdale Avenue. Another was recovered on the same adolescent offender who was present for one of these shooting incidents. The 3rd adolescent offender that was present in Livingston Avenue was also charged with another shooting for hindering prosecution on a shooting that occurred on Elliott Avenue back in March. So I have the board up here. I'm just going to point to it in a moment. I'm going to close out. I'm going to walk off and let the mayor and commissioner speak. I'm going to let you know that Matthew Quinones, the murder suspect, was arraigned in criminal court on June 7th, and he's been remanded to the county jail. The juveniles have all been arraigned and remanded to the custody of a juvenile detention facility as well, and their charges are all going to be pending in court. I'm going to play a video for you right now so I can just get your attention to the screen behind me. There's going to be 2 clips in the video. The first is the black and white clip. That's going to be the shooting at 100 Livingston Avenue where 3 individuals have been charged. And then the second clip is going to be from the homicide on Moore Street. That's a 17-year-old juvenile. This is Matthew Quinones of Danbury, Connecticut. I'm going to step off. I'm going to point to the board 1 second just to clarify what I said. You have a shooting incident on Elliott Avenue where the suspects have been identified as a 16-year-old adolescent offender who's been charged with hindering prosecution. He's not being charged with the shooting itself. And then on May 13th, we had the shooting on Livingston Avenue, which was that first black and white clip you saw. 3 suspects, adolescent offender 1, 2, and 3. The person who is being charged on the March 23rd incident was also present for the Livingston Avenue incident. Then on May 31st, we have the homicide on Moore Street with Matthew Quinones. The 2 individuals that are also being charged for Livingston Avenue were present over here. And then the 4th shooting's on June 4th, where we have adolescent number 4, age 17. His charges are pending when we place him into custody. The gun that was used here, we believe is the same gun that was used here, was found in possession of this person right here. Now I'm going to turn it over to Police Commissioner Sapienza and Mayor Mike Spano to continue.
Good morning. So these arrests are in relation to 4 separate shootings within the city, and they're responsible for a serious uptick in gang violence over the past couple of weeks. We've successfully closed out these cases and made 4 arrests. It's up to the courts now to make sure that these offenders stay in custody. Recent raise the age legislation does not see 16 and 17-year-olds as adults, but 16 and 17-year-olds, as you can see here, as you saw in the video, they're driving our gang violence. We've been told that the judges have been given more discretion in situations like these, and I'm imploring them to do so. In 2022, we had 64 gun arrests. Of those arrests, roughly 35 of those individuals are not presently incarcerated. So that's an important number. It doesn't mean that all of these people will stay on the street. It means that some of these cases might still be adjudicated. But for the time being, you have roughly half the individuals with guns are on the street. This is why it's very important. On our end, we'll make arrests and we'll close out cases, but we need the courts and we need legislators to help us. I'd like to thank our partnership with the Westchester DA, FBI Westchester Safe Street Task Force, and our own major case in gang detectives. Yonkers remains a very safe city, and to reinforce that safety, there will be extra uniform and plainclothes officers on motor and foot patrol. I'd like to turn it over to the mayor, please.
Thank you, Commissioner, and I'm joined with the Majority Leader of City Council, Tasha Diaz, and Minority Leader, Mike Green, and of course, Councilman John Rubo, County Legislator Jimmy Nolan. I could stand here and tout our crime statistics, right, and say, yeah, we're by comparison to our sister cities, we're safe, right? Unfortunately, what's it matter when you have a dead teenager? And so I could also point to something, and I think it's important that we say this, is that the solve rate in this city is equally as impressive as the crime rate. In other words, our police officers have such a good relationship with the community that they go out, they go to work, and they make these arrests. We pull people off the streets as quickly as we can. But here we are, again, holding this press conference, and we'll be here again, over and over again, having other press conferences that most urban communities have, where you have teenagers who are able to get their hands on illegal weapons because of the porous federal laws that exist in our nation today, and killing other teenagers. And the beat goes on. So we're going to continue to work with our partners here in Yonkers in terms of the Westchester District Attorney's Office, the FBI, and our men and women in blue who go out there and do a great job. We'll continue to do the things that we do. One shooting is one too many. At the end of the day, there needs to be more done at the federal and state level in terms to ensure that we have the tools that we need to be able to protect the kids in our community. And certainly the kids out there who are committing these crimes, who have lost their way, who don't feel that there's an alternative to that lifestyle, are obviously doing something wrong. So I'll turn this over to the Commissioner.
I'll try to answer whatever questions you might have.
Is the victim associated with any gang group in Yonkers, or is just a bystander?
The question is our victim associated with any gang in Yonkers? We believe so. The answer that everyone involved, suspect, victims, are all members of gangs. We don't mention the names of the gangs. We don't like giving them notoriety, but suffice it to say, this is gang violence.
Can you talk a little bit about the majority of your defendants on the board are adolescents? Can you talk about the ages of these crimes?
Yes.
Age wall.
So, you know, raise the age, bail reform, all this stuff has an effect on us. What I often say is that we still do our jobs. Right? We play the hand that we're dealt. But as you can see, a good many gang offenders are 16, 17 years of age. We've had groups and community programs where we spoke to mothers, and we told them we're going to work with their adolescent kids, and they've told us, hey, you're too late. My kid's already involved with gang violence. 16 and 17-year-old gang offenders, as you can see here, as you can see in that video, are capable of doing a lot of heinous things. We're not saying that you shouldn't give a 16 or 17-year-old a break when they commit a minor offense, but in this case, you're talking about attempted murder, you're talking about conspiracy, you're talking about basically an organized gang hit. So in this instance, we hope that the courts do the right thing and keep these offenders in custody as long as possible.
Commissioner, it's hard not to notice that these 4 incidents are in a very small, prescribed geographic area. Is this an area where a particular gang is active or defending its turf, or how would you?
Yes, the question is this area, you know, is it typical of gang violence? Yes, there are areas that have more gang violence than others. 2 gangs in particular that we're thinking about in terms of this murder and in terms of these shootings do operate in that area.
So is this a rivalry, or is it an intra-gang?
It's a rivalry. We never know what the grievance is about. It's often involving guns and drugs. You know, one thing that I talk about when we talk about marijuana and the fact that in many ways it's been decriminalized, it doesn't mean that gangs don't fight over it. It doesn't mean that turf wars still don't occur. So this is something that we see on a daily basis.
Mayor, can you talk about the impact these arrests will have? You have 4 different shootings, point-blank shootings, one shooting in the middle of the day. What impact will this have in the neighborhood, these arrests?
Tremendous impact. Like I said, if you look at our statistics, our solve rate with the Yonkers Police Department is extremely high. I would probably say it's probably the best of any urban setting here in New York State. So the arrest, it will have an effect because in that community, these individuals were ones committing all of the shootings. And so, but again, I have to go back to where is the federal government, where is the state government in terms of helping us find something for our 17-year-olds to do. 17-year-olds in urban settings are lost, 16 and 17-year-olds. And the only thing that seems to be clear to many of us is, you know, this need to be a part of a gang, and then of course, like I said, the gun trafficking that takes place. New York State has probably the toughest gun laws in the country, but it doesn't mean anything if the overall federal laws are porous and these guns can find their way into our community and into our kids' hands, where unfortunately they're being used against other kids. So we have a lot of work to do, and like I said, you know, I don't know where the outrage is. I know where the outrage comes sometimes, but I just wish that outrage that we see from time to time would be outrage that would be across the board, because it's needed.
Commissioner,
Yes, well, the one thing to note is that one of the weapons recovered from this arrest is responsible for an additional shooting. And that's, something that's very important to us. The spirit of this legislation, sometimes if someone has a firearm they're caught merely with possession or what's appeared to be merely possession, what happens is then that person gets out and then that gun might still come back into play or that shooter might come back into play. And this is, when you're talking about recidivists with shoplifters, it doesn't have the same impact as when you're talking about recidivists with gun violence. And, this is where the rubber meets the road. It's very important that we keep dangerous people in custody. And to the mayor's point, our arrests are up. Our arrests are up more than 17%. So we're making more arrests than we ever have. If you commit a crime in Yonkers, you will be apprehended and you will be arrested. You talk about our solvability rate. Our detectives do an unbelievable job. In 2022, we solved 100% of our homicides. So you will be caught. So now it's up to everybody else to kind of give us the support we need so we can keep people in jail.
Now, Commissioner, in the past, Yonkers Police Department had a gang unit. Do we still have that gang unit and it's operating? If not, think about bringing it back?
No, we absolutely have a gang unit. I want to make that very clear. I've been hearing things in the press recently suggesting that we don't. We do have a gang unit. They're very active and they're very effective, and they developed this information that led to these arrests. And in fact, one of our gang officers was able to identify one of the suspects when no one else could. So, I mean, in a case like this, it's crucial to have a gang unit and crucial to be in touch with the gangs, what they're doing. We don't often have the support of victims, but we do have our own gang unit with their own intelligence. And it's not just our gang unit, it's our pattern crimes unit, it's our officers on the street, it's our detectives. We have numerous officers out there to deal with a situation like this.
One other topic, sir. The situation, the death of the pedestrian last night on North Broadway. Can you give us an update? I know you're moving forward in both kind of a vehicle traffic investigation and a possible criminal investigation.
Yes, unfortunately, we're not going to know more for some time. So what we can tell you right now is the officers at the scene pretty much said that the driver looked like they were in an altered mental state. That could be from a concussion, it could be from medical reasons, it could be from narcotics, it could be from any number of things. We don't know the answer to that yet, but we will investigate it. But it's important to note that, unlike TV, toxicology reports take a very long time. Sometimes it could take us months to get to the bottom of this. But we are taking the measures we need to take from an investigative standpoint to make sure that we follow through with the investigation.
Can you give us the parameters of what you think happened yesterday?
What we do know is that a vehicle traveling on North Broadway lost control of the vehicle, crossed the double yellow line, at that point at a high rate of speed, perhaps because the driver was unconscious, perhaps for any number of other reasons, crossed the double yellow line, went onto the sidewalk, struck the pedestrian at a high rate of speed, continued onto a couple of yards, and then the vehicle came to rest in a home where there were some minor injuries, but from debris or whatnot. And the pedestrian was killed instantly.
And Mayor, some of the neighbors are saying they're concerned about speed on that stretch of North Broadway. Is that something the administration will look at?
Yeah, of course. The administration will, and I'm sure the police department is already on that. I don't know that any amount of law enforcement that day was going to do. If you went to the site of the accident and saw how it happened, I don't know that it was the wrong side of the street on the sidewalk at a high rate of speed. And my heart goes out to the Kenny and O'Rourke family, just so you know. Long-time family. Father-in-law was the mayor of Yonkers, James O'Rourke, and he had 14 children. Big, old, long-time family. All live in North Yonkers, and I know her pretty well. She's very much involved in the community, involved with the Yonkers Historical Society. She's going to be missed, and And like I said, my condolences go out to that family. It's a horrible, horrible thing.
Commissioner, you're saying that the toxology report takes a while to come back.
Yes.
But is that a history, medical history for the driver? History in the past that you know?
We look at medical history, we of course look at criminal history, but being that it's an active investigation, we're not going to divulge that at this time. Again, when we get all the pieces of the puzzle, we'll make a determination. And we have to take measures to preserve that evidence, to preserve the driver's blood legally, and the things we need to do on our end. But we will do a thorough toxicology, and that will give us a major piece of the puzzle.
All right, I think that's going to conclude the conference. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner. The news release and the video for